There are a few people in my life that when I have conversations with them, I literally say, we should have been recording that conversation and turned it into a podcast episode. Well, today I bring on a guest who's been on the podcast before. In fact, this guest has the most downloaded episode on this podcast. I invited her back to have another conversation about manifestation, life, and more. We just let the conversation take us where it wants to take us. We talked for about an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes, and it is an amazing conversation. I cannot wait for you guys to listen to this one. So here you go. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we have a returning guest, one of my best friends, business besties, spiritual besties, best people in the world. Her and her husband are some of my closest friends, and such an honor, Kathrin, to have you back on the podcast. So welcome.
Oh my God, what an intro. I'm so excited to be here.
And I made it up.
To be fair, we're like 99.99999% spiritual. I think that's all of our conversations. And there's like 0.0001% business. But yes, the rest nailed it.
I think it's shifted a little bit because you're now a parent. So it's like,
oh my
before
God.
It was all just like 1% business, 99% spiritual. Now it's probably, I don't know, 10%, 20% parenthood, 80% spiritual.
Yeah. I mean, I totally forgot that the last time I was on your podcast, I had a whole baby.
Yeah.
I have a whole human that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
That
How's
lives
that
with
going?
me. It's crazy. I mean, it's actually crazy. It's the most beautiful journey, but also at the same time, I realize how much time I used to waste. Looking at my schedule, my daily schedule today, I'm like, I complained about not having enough time. What was I doing with my time? And there's, of course, these balances that I have to go through where I also have learned, how my energy actually functions. And even in parenthood, I need to have my alone time, and creating these conversations and these agreements with my husband of okay, I need 1 or 2 hours a day in my bed with my computer, just doing nothing on the internet, just going and Googling. And that's how my brain relaxes, is just doing nonsense on the internet for at least an hour a day, or just reading a book or something. And I realized that I used to do so much of that before. And I was like, wow, that was so nice. But of course, parenthood comes with ups and downs, pros and cons, but I wouldn't trade it. I mean, it's so in my purpose. It's so in alignment. It's amazing, truly.
I love it. And it's funny because we already had we briefly created an outline of this episode, and we're already off the first 30 seconds.
Perfect.
Parenthood never came up in our outline at all. And then here we are.
Now we're going to give parenting tips for the next hour.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that for a little bit. Because it was one of those things in my mind. I was like, should we talk about parenthood? Should we not? And then here we are. So let's dive into it. My question to you on your parenthood journey, because I've been on this path for a while, and I started my business and becoming a parent at the same time. Mm-hmm. So this idea of having enough time to work on the business without kids has never been something for me.
Yeah.
How have you managed that shift of cool, I have all the time in the world to now I have this dedicated, and I know you kind of answered a little bit right now.
Yeah.
But what was that schedule look like? You have your hour or two in the morning and stuff like that, but is it just do you have a lot more structure now? Is it more of you just kind of do what you feel when you feel it, or what does that schedule sort of look like?
Yeah. So I am actually on sabbatical as we record this episode, and the one podcast that I did not cancel or reschedule was Brandon's. I was like,
Oh
Brandon
yeah.
is my bestie, so we're just gonna chat and have a good time. And it truly never feels like work with you ever, like no
Right.
matter what
It's
we
always
do.
fun. Yep.
So my schedule is obviously very different right now because I'm very much like I don't have a job right now. So I'm very much in mom mode and
Yeah.
I'm going to Pilates. And so like my schedule really revolves around like wellness and taking care of
Mm.
myself. Like that's where previously the time that I would have spent on my business, I'm now investing in myself. And then of course, like spending a ton of time with my baby. Like
Yeah.
doing all kinds of stuff together, and he has swimming lessons and we go to this
Does
place
he
called
really?
Gymboree. Yes, he has like so there's it's called ISR, Infant Swim Rescue.
Yes.
So basically,
I've seen those videos.
yeah, basically if the baby falls in the pool, he knows how to rescue himself, and not like rescue
Mm.
himself by getting out of the pool because,
Yeah.
you know, they barely walk when they start, you know, this training, but
Right.
it's just so that they get in prime floating position so that they're facing up and they know that facing up and just laying calmly is access to oxygen, and
Yeah.
therefore they just like wait for someone to come grab them. That's technically how it's supposed to work. So he
So
has those
fast.
lessons, and then you know, there's all kinds of activities. But going back, so the big mistake that I made
Mm.
was not having a proper maternity leave. And as
Mm.
business owners, we feel like, oh no, like I can't possibly put the business on pause just because I have a baby. The baby's going to be integrated into my life. I'm not coming into the baby's life. The baby's going to be coming into my life. It's fine,
Right.
like a couple weeks, no problem, whatever. And holy crap, did I mess that up.
Mm.
I maybe had like 2 or 3 weeks of maternity leave, like where it's like nobody bothered me. And then I started coming back into business and I just felt like this. Honestly, it was a mixture of both things. It was like this
Yeah.
pressure to come into my business, but also I had like an actual drive to come back in. I had ideas. I felt like I was in
Mm.
a portal of some sort and vortex. Was learning new skill sets. I got introduced to this new modality called rapid resolution therapy. I was very into it. I wanted to restructure some of my programs around it, and I was like gung ho, gung ho, gung ho. And so in
Right.
those moments, I relied on a nanny. So
Mm.
my mom actually is obviously the grandma of my
Right.
baby,
Yep.
and she's our full-time nanny. She's also live in with us. She travels with us. So I feel so blessed to have that help. And I think
Yeah.
that it's not impossible. So I don't want anyone to get that idea of like it's impossible, because you're a prime example of not having a nanny, building
Right.
a business, and having a baby at the same time. But for me, it's like I need to have, I work best, like knowing how you work is very important. I
Yeah.
work best
100%.
in peace and quiet. So I need at least 2 to 3 hours of peace and quiet so that I can channel something out. If I keep getting distracted, my brain is already like, a lot of people talk about like ADHD and stuff. Never ever labeled myself as that, but the more I have friends who are ADHD and I talk to them and I'm like, tell me, like just kind of watching them, and my husband definitely has ADHD, just like watching them, like, wait, I think I have that, where I get
Mm.
so distracted. It's like my brain is like a squirrel, like blah 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 blah. It's just like I'll like run through my living room and I'll see like one thing to pick up, and then I'm like, oh, I need to do that, and I drop that and I go somewhere else, and it's like 40 minutes later I haven't accomplished anything because I need that just like
Right.
centeredness.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very very important for me, and that's like how I made it work, is by having the help that I need. And if
Well,
that means like getting your neighbor to help you, hiring a babysitter or something, like I truly think that I would not be able to run a full-time business and have a baby at the same time if I didn't have that help.
yeah, and it might be different too because obviously being a mom and a dad are two completely different things. But I
Yeah.
think the key that you said is just understanding how you work as a person. Like, and I do. Everyone needs their own downtime. Everyone needs their own one-on-one time. And like this, I was just telling you before the podcast. I just spent 2 days out in the woods by myself. Took our camper out and just camped for like 2 days by myself, and it was like the best thing ever. And it was really interesting because I went out there and I was like, I'm going to work. I'm just going to work and get in the silence. And I got out there and I'm like, my body's telling me no. It's telling
Yeah.
me do not work. Kathrin, I literally sat underneath the pine trees and the aspens in a chair for like 48 hours, just
That's my
like
dream.
drinking a beer, doing nothing, and just like connecting and watching UFOs at night. And it was like and playing the flute. And it was like the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
However, I will say you and I are a little bit opposite in that way where I don't need as much one-on-one time. Jacqueline is like that too. She needs a lot of one-on-one time, like time to herself. But what I started to realize is like when I start getting out there with my kids, like I love loading all three of them up in the truck and we just go hiking or do adventures. Almost all of my content that I've created has come through experiences with my kids. It's like learning how to communicate, because I teach messaging. So it's like how to communicate with them, the language patterns. Like they teach me so many different lessons in growth. Like, why did I get triggered by that? And they're like my biggest growth tools. And so I I don't need as much of that with, as much as like Jacqueline does. And it's great. But I think that's the key for every parent is you have to figure that out and try to create a life where you get what you need while raising kids and doing that whole thing.
So true.
With that being said, how much time did you actually take before you went back to work? It sounds like 2 or 3 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah. 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. And then was
not
it
enough?
No, I was going to say, because what popped in my head was like the sabbatical you're taking is almost like the maternity leave that you probably should have taken or your body needed or something like that. Seems like that's what you're kind of going through now. Spending that time with Orion.
The conversation that it's for anyone listening to this podcast, it's actually Brandon who helped me through probably one of the hardest times in my life, which was my breastfeeding journey with Orion. And I was like 5 months in. Do you remember? I was texting you and I was like, Brandon, I need someone who is working with the Dawn, who understands where I'm coming from. Let me give you all the context, because there's certain conversations and things that were said and things I was way thrown off by the Dawn, of course. So I had to learn my own lessons. Right. And you said something very, very powerful that you channeled that was said from the Dawn to James. James told you, you told me, and the way that it channeled through all of us was so effing powerful. It was like, if you put stress on the body, you're going to put stress on the soul. And when you put stress on the soul, that's like the worst thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah.
And for me, I've realized like in the last, by not taking that proper like time off, I was just feeling this stress on my body means stress on my soul. Right. And I want to say mid-May it was when I was coming home from Italy, because I just also traveled like a maniac the first half of this year while running a business and doing launches and having, a baby to take care of at the same time. And just like the packing, unpacking, packing, unpacking, flying long haul flights. You guys, I'm not just like traveling a couple hours outside of my city. I'm like going from LA to Tokyo, Tokyo to Singapore, Singapore to Australia, Australia to Fiji. I mean, crazy locations. And I hit a wall, and there was a podcast interview. I was supposed to be interviewed on someone's podcast, someone who has a huge podcast. I mean, this would have been life-changing for my business. And thankfully, this is someone who I'm also connected with in the sense of like, we were a part of a mastermind together. So I know this person, and I was like, hey, I am not operating as my best self right now. Do you mind if we reschedule for like next week? Because let me take this week off. I realized that I really burnt myself out. Let me recover, rejuvenate. I really want to provide amazing value to your audience. I'm just not there today. So I had one of my team member also like email their team and reschedule. And they said, no problem about, of course we want Kathrin to feel better, but this person is taking the summer off. So the next time that we could do the podcast isn't until like end of August, September or something. And I remember clear as day, because I'm, through all this work that we've done, really honing in on our intuition. I got this like very clear voice that said, you're also going to take the summer off. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Yes, you're also going to take the summer off. I had a launch planned the following week. I had a launch planned in August. I had the BBD launch. I mean, I had so much on my calendar that I was going to come home from Italy, apparently refreshed and rejuvenated, ready to go back to work and just go hard. And I just was completely exhausted. And all of a sudden, this is actually a concept that I teach. I've talked about it a bunch on my podcast, the concept of secret desires, and how if you have a secret desire, which is typically unconscious, right? It's not something you're voicing. It's like, God, I wish. So here's how it can show up for people. Like, so you recognize like, God, I wish I could just take a day off. God, I wish I could just have a week off or something. Or God, I wish I could just do this. But you don't admit that to yourself. And you just stuff it down and you just consciously do the complete opposite. the universe will force that secret desire to come through, but it will typically come through in a way that you don't want it to come through. Meaning, if you're someone who's like wishing to take a week off, but you're not giving yourself that permission, you're not listening to your soul because that's what your soul is communicating to you. That's when things happen where you'll like break a leg, or you'll get in a car accident, or you're going to get really sick, or just some way it's going to manifest where all of a sudden you're forced to take a week off and you're literally in bed like, wait, now I am taking a week off, but my leg really hurts, right? Or like,
Right.
this is not the way that I expected it to go. So I've learned that lesson enough to where I was like, you know what? I don't want to find out what happens if I don't take the summer off. Like there's no way we're going to let that
There's,
unfold.
there's no
So
consequences for sure.
yeah, consequences. So that's where I don't even know what question am I answering,
No,
but
I
that's how
don't.
my
To be honest
sabbatical
with you,
came about.
I don't remember either. But there was so much gold in what you just said, and I'm like conflicted on which direction to take it now. So I think this is where I want to go. Is you started talking about the secret desire, and you started talking about the
Unconscious.
soul. Yeah, it's like
Oh,
the
soul.
unconscious.
Soul.
It's the
Uh-huh.
soul. But something, you call it a download, whatever. Something hit me when you said that, which was your soul health. And I don't think enough people talk about like the health of your soul. And so a quick story of kind of what I'm talking about is recently, so the last, I don't even know how much you and I have talked about business, my business in particular, but we've been shifting so much over the last 10 months. We've tried to move away from launches and do like this open enrollment. And we've built out this funnel. It's doing over $1 million on a run rate of over 1 million, evergreen. It's doing really well.
Hell
But
yeah, Brandon. Hell yeah.
we're so excited. But the thing is it took so much out of me, like a lot out of me, where I was like working at
Yeah.
night and I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. And then I saw DX, and he started talking to me about, it was pretty crazy. I think I told you a little bit of this, but he starts talking to me about your health and your body and why it's so important. And then all of a sudden this raven like flies by and lets out this huge like screech, like shoo, and it's like 20 feet above our head. And then DX does something with his hands, like signals to it or waves to it or something like that. And I look at DX when he's doing that, and I look back and the raven's just fucking gone. It's just gone. It's just not even in the sky anymore. I'm like, where the hell? And he doesn't even skip a beat. He's just like staring at me, having a full on conversation.
Normal activity over here.
Yeah. But he started to talk to me about my sleep and was like, look, you have to understand, when you abuse your body, you're abusing your soul. And he goes, so when you take care of your body, you're taking care of your soul. And he said, your luminous body and your soul. And he's like, when those are out of like not healthy, it affects everything. And he's like, a lot of people will go and they'll abuse their bodies, not realizing they're actually abusing their soul, which then has bigger effects beyond the 3D of what we can see. And what it sounds like you're talking about is listening to that soul and developing like that health for the soul, not just your body. Like everyone talks about the physical body, which is connected to the soul. But then when you F all that up, you're effing all that up. And when that's effed up, like I would imagine, DX didn't say this, I'm just kind of assuming now, but like the ability to access intuition, to your third eye, to access all of that, the downloads, is now going to be like out of whack. And I go back and I think about it, and it's like, man, there's times where I'm just like totally tired, abusing my body, not getting sleep. I can't connect. I can't connect with craniums, with the beings, with myself. I don't get as many downloads as I want to. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about is paying attention to that and really listening to that unconscious side of things. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. And I so relate to that. It's like you're in zombie mode when you're not taking care of your body and your access to intuition is inhibited. You're just a normie in 3D at that point. And it's
Would you say a normie?
A normie in the 3D. Yeah. You're just in zombie mode. You're just going through the motions and there's no purpose. There's no mission. There's nothing driving anything. You're just repeating the same day over and over and over again of like, where am I actually going?
Yeah. And that takes me to my next question, which is, why do you think people do that? You know, like is it because we think we're supposed to show up a certain way? Society has told us to like hustle, hustle, hustle. What has been your experience as to like, because you said you're going to be traveling, you're going to get back to work, and then all of a sudden you just had this message of not to do that. But why do you think you were going to do that? Is it just what was normal, what you've always done? Is it what society told you? Like what do you think was going on there?
I love this question because in the sabbatical, I've given so much back to myself and done so little of this hustle bustle business, reaching goals, things like that. It's like
Right.
I'm like living in a goalless space, but not from like this place of not having a purpose or a mission, because I feel like having that is very healthy and drives your energy somewhere.
Yeah.
But there's no, I'm just like chilling for the first time in my life. And would I lie? Like, I would totally lie and say to you that I don't have these bouts of like worry of like, oh my God, am I messing up the momentum of my business? Like, what if I
Right.
kill all the momentum and my drive and all this? And like, who am I without momentum and drive? And, my business has grown so much, so fast over the last 7 years. It's like, people know me for that. A lot of the
Right.
significance that I get from, podcast interviews or my content is like teaching people like the energetics behind really speeding up in business and speeding up in life. And all of a sudden, I'm like taking things turtle pace. Who am I without that? Like, who am I as the slower version of myself, right? So there's been so much deprogramming and reprogramming that I've
Mm,
gone through. And to tell you like where it comes from, I mean, there's so many layers to this. It's
right.
society, it's cultural, it's your family, it's the things that you've heard. I mean, when you're a kid, ages 0 to 7 years old, and I would argue up until like 15 probably,
Right.
those are the ages where all of your beliefs really become solidified, where you don't have choice over which beliefs become solidified. So what I
Hmm.
mean by that is that your conscious mind comes in around the age of 7, and that's like the free will. That's the
Yeah.
like, do I really believe in Santa Claus? Like, maybe it's my parents, like that thought that kids
Yeah. Critical
naturally have of
thinking.
like,
Yeah.
is there really a big fat man that comes down my chimney every single year, or is that BS, right?
Right.
And you'll notice like kids before that age, they don't question that. There's, yeah, the
No.
tooth fairy. I mean, they question so little because they see you or other adults as God, right? And
Yeah.
God is 100% correct 100% of the time. And that's so rooted in survival too, right? Like,
Yeah. That's
so
exactly
much
what I
we
was gonna
don't
say.
realize. A
Yeah.
lot of our programming comes from like this desire, this biological wiring for survival. And
Hmm.
so we just take on so much from so many different, like the media. I mean, it's so vast. And for me, like I was growing up in poverty, growing up as a Russian immigrant. My family drove into me like, you got to work hard, you got to work hard, you got to work hard, you got to go to medical school. Like, once you work hard enough, all of a sudden there's gonna come one day where you're good enough, which
Right.
will come with a medical diploma. That's when you're good enough, and that's when all success will come,
Right.
right? I didn't take that route. So it's like unconsciously, because I didn't take that route, or I just resented that route so much, it's like I'm in
Hmm.
my business. There's unconsciously some sort of medical diploma. Like for me, it's like once I make $10 million, once I make $20 million, once I make this, once I do this, once I hit this milestone, then I'll finally be good enough,
Right.
right? And
Yep.
that's when things will be enough. But the thing is like it's never going to be enough.
Yeah.
And so it's just like this endless rat race, endless
It
burnout. And at some
is.
point, you just have to
You
stop
have
and
to
you have to ask
stop.
yourself, like, for what?
Right.
Like when I'm 90 years old, and this is what I process a lot of my thoughts and my decisions, actually, I process so much from this one mindset that I picked up from Tony Robbins back in the day, where he talks about like when you're 90 years old, sitting in a rocking chair, looking back at your life, does this
Hmm.
actually matter? Is this going to make a difference? Are you going to be proud of that? Are you going to be happy about that?
Yep.
And I constantly take myself to the future, look back, and I'm like, was it really worth it for me to do that? Was it really worth it for me to do that? No, then why the hell am I doing it?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's also one of those reasons why I love loading my kids up and just taking them on these things, because not only do I get great business thoughts, but I'm like, those are the things that I look, when I'm 90 and I look back on, I'll be like, I fucking lived.
Yes.
I went, my kids lived. Those are the things I will never regret. Like, I didn't do something with my kids because of work or whatever.
Yeah.
And you had to remember, like, especially the kids, like you have 18 summers with them, you have 18 winters, you have 18 springs, you have whatever. And to be honest with you, you really only have like 12, because once they like become teenagers, like they probably aren't going to want to go do those things with you. But from like 0 to 12 is usually they want to do everything with you. So you have like 12 of those, and you have 12 years. And I'm like, and that goes by like that. And I'm not going to waste that. And I made a conscious decision right when COVID hit to not grow the business anymore. And we were at like 2.5 million. And up until like recently, that's where we've been at. But it wasn't because I just was stuck. It was because I've made a conscious decision of like, I don't want to grow beyond this, because that means more team, more employees, more systems, more things breaking, more problems happening, because we have a system that works at this level. And when we go to the next level, shit's going to fall apart. I'm like, I don't want to be pulled back in. And then obviously a year ago, the universe was like, all right, it's time. Like it's good time. It's time to pull you back.
There's a season for everything. I think so little people understand this, is that you can't be in the season of growth and the season of harvest forever. Like at some point, summer comes to an end, then we go harvest, and then the harvest is done. And then you go into winter, and then you go back into spring. I think people try to prolong summer and fall, which is like growth and harvest, which everyone, of course, loves those seasons because they're so sexy. You get so much out of it. But it's like, I love that you knew what you wanted. I think that's the key there, is creating a life that you consciously want to create. Yeah. And for you, it's like, I didn't want to grow past this point because I love my lifestyle. I love the benefits. I love the amount of time that it gives me to spend with my kids. I love my team as it is. Yeah. And then that's great. And you be in that season until it's over. And it sounds like that season is over. And now you're in the next season. And that's purely in alignment with your soul now.
Yeah, it 100%. And it was funny too, because that's exactly, I mean, I got to the point where I was like, we're making how much more money do you need? Is it $2.5 million a year? I'm working 10 hours a week, my kids don't even have to go to school because it's amazing. COVID. Like they're doing homeschool, which is a freaking joke. And so we're just like out having adventures all the time. And it was awesome. And then DX at the last gathering for his birthday was like, did this talk, and he talked about like, you know, he said something along the lines of like, some of you guys have never asked when's enough. And it's just more money, more this, more that. But he's like, you can't take it with you. He's like, when's enough going to be for some of you? Yeah. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. And I didn't feel like he was talking, because sometimes when he talks, you feel like he's talking directly at you. I didn't feel that, because I was like, I feel like I've done a good job of saying, okay, this is enough for the last couple of years. And then all of a sudden the universe is like, all right, asshole, time to go again.
I'll never forget him looking directly at me, but talking to a group of 30 people and being like, some of us didn't do the work. And I'm like, oh my God, it was me. It was me. I didn't do the work.
It was like 90% of the people in the room. You always feel like it's talking directly to you. Okay, so this is actually a great conversation, because it leads to a segue of into the unconscious. And so that's what you're kind of talking about, is these beliefs and these things that you have to like work through and stuff. And here's why I wanted to talk about the unconscious with you, is because I think when it comes to manifesting, which is what most people probably know you for at this point, is people focus on, I think what you call it, conscious manifesting, I believe is the term that you use, which is like, you're very aware of what you're doing. It's very aware of like, okay, I'm going to visualize.
It's conscious in that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's this whole, and let's just say you do it for 30 minutes or an hour a day, right? Conscious manifesting. But then you go back into the world, and for 23 hours the rest of the day, you're still manifesting. People don't get that. It's like, but that's all your unconscious. That's all your like your beliefs, the things that you've been grown up with, the things that you think are real, the rights and the wrongs that you took on, like everything that you have is affecting your vibration. It's affecting your frequency. To be honest with you, for the majority of your life. And you'd know better than me, but like I would assume that whatever's going on the unconscious or the subconscious actually has more of an effect on your manifesting than the conscious. Would you agree with that, or not really?
Oh my God, yes. So let me just clarify on when I say conscious manifesting, I don't mean you're using your conscious mind. And you said that, like it's about awareness. Conscious manifesting is like, I am now aware of what it is that I want to manifest. But the manifestation process itself is very unconscious. It's very inner mind, let's call it inner mind, where we are so unaware to like most of the beliefs that we have, most of the patterns that we have, most of the habits, like it shows up in our life. And I always tell my students, like, if you want to know where your unconscious is, you want to know what your unconscious patterns are, what your unconscious beliefs are, look at your life. They literally show up in your reality. And I think that's a powerful tool to use. So when it comes to manifestation, like, I use my reality as a meter. I use my reality as like this, not scale, but just like a mirror as to what is the health of my unconscious. Am I still holding on to certain beliefs around my relationship that I picked up from my parents? And that was a huge, I mean, one of the paths that I'm on now is a lot of relationships and a lot of polarity, masculine, feminine energies. That's like very into that right now. I'm going to like a 3-day event this weekend all around that. Like, I'm obsessed with it now. And it was from the realization of like, wait a second, my partner and I have been together for 8 years, married for almost 5, and there's still certain things where I'm like, why the hell does this keep coming up, right? I see it in our reality because it shows up in our arguments, it shows up in our conflicts, it shows up in the way that I feel about him, this and that and this and that. And so I go, interesting. Well, thank you, unconscious, for reflecting to me what my beliefs are. Where do these come from? Honestly, you don't really have to ask yourself that, because they do come from somewhere. They're going to come from the past. They're going to come from your childhood. Look at how your family is. Look at your parents. I mean, there's so many different roots that it can go back to. But for me, it was a realization of like, oh, that's how my parents were. Okay, interesting. It wasn't what I consciously wanted. It wasn't what I thought I was consciously creating, but unconsciously, because the unconscious directs 95% of your reality. It literally is in charge of creating 95% of your reality. That's where it's coming from. It's like, what's happening with my finances? How do I feel about money? What is my relationship with money like? If it is a reality that you're not obsessed with, that isn't serving you, that you don't like, that gives you anxiety, well, the root of that is in your unconscious. And I think that so many people, they get obsessed with the affirmations, and they get obsessed with the vision boards, and they get obsessed with these like tools that you can use your conscious mind to work with. And like you said, they can do it in an hour a day. Like I always get asked, like, Kathrin, how many hours a day do you manifest? And I'm like, what kind of question is that? Because it's literally 24/7. It's 24/7. Yeah. And the other work, they think they're done, but the other work is in, what do you do when someone cuts you off while you're driving on the highway? Are you getting pissed? Are you getting angry? Like, how are you showing up in your average day-to-day life? As shit comes up, who are you? How are you dealing with it? Who are you becoming in the process? How are you acting? And that is a total reflection of your unconscious. So that's what I mean by unconscious and then conscious manifesting.
Okay, that makes sense. So I have a question for you on the kind of thing we were just talking about, like the getting upset, getting mad. Because I think when most people talk about manifesting, they automatically just go to money. I would assume that's probably the number one thing people are trying to...
Or love. Money and love.
Money and love, yes.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like, personal development, holding high frequency, high vibration. But then you see like these people who are terrible people, but they have a lot of money. They're always upset. They're always... So what's going on there? Is like money have a different vibration than...
Yeah.
Like, how does that...
I love this question, because a lot of people equate high vibration to feeling good. And there actually is a connection, but not a full connection.
Yep.
So a lot of people think high vibration means feel good all the time.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, newsflash, people, you're a human being, and it's impossible for you to feel good all the time.
Right.
Life is life. We're cyclical beings, especially if you're a woman in your reproductive years. Like, you are a cyclical being. There's no effing way that your hormones are the same day in and day out like a man's are. And so naturally you're going to have different emotions and feelings, and I mean, you're going to be all over the place. It's fine. Like that's how it's designed to be. Even if you are a masculine being, or you are a woman who's out of her reproductive years, so postmenopause, like you follow more of a 24-hour cycle, but yet still in that cycle, sometimes, you know, your hormones are higher, sometimes they're lower. Like things happen. Your kids are going to piss you off. I mean, like all kinds of things are going to happen. And so you have to disconnect that high vibration means feeling good all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's just not realistic.
Right.
I could be very pissed off. I could be angry. I could be having the worst. I could be like eating junk food 24/7, gaining weight, just not at par with my health. I could be having a horrible fight with Brennan that lasts like a whole year and still make a ton of money because the reflection in that area of my life is coming from my beliefs about money. So if I believe that I'm a vibrational match to money, whether I feel good or bad, I'm skinny, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, you know, whatever, money is going to come.
Yeah.
Then in your area of relationship, how that shows up depends on your beliefs in your relationship. How your health shows up based on your beliefs around your health. So it's not like I feel good and so everything is going to be good in my life. No, it's by your belief systems. And so bad people, a lot of people ask me like, well, there's these bad people or these depressed people or sad people or whatever who are being in a low vibration because they connect like bad mood equals low vibration, or just being a bad person, low vibration.
Right.
And they're millionaires and billionaires. And how is that possible? Well, it's because, first of all, money doesn't care how you feel.
Yeah.
Money is neutral. Money does not respond to that. Money responds to belief systems. And I think vibration truly comes from belief systems. That's what I've come to realize from my work of like taking this apart, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, working with thousands and thousands and thousands of students. It comes down to your belief systems. And I think that's what ultimately sets your vibration. And so if you believe that money is abundant, you believe that money comes to you no matter what, you have a great relationship with money, like that is solid. You're going to make money no matter what's going on in your life.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. You know, like people just think high vibration equals money, but then they never ask, well, what frequency is money even operating at?
Yeah.
And again, it's like you said, you can have people that are depressed, sad, assholes, and you could also have, with a ton of money, you can have amazing, nicest people in the world who don't have any money because of their belief systems stopping them, blocking them, or bringing it in. You said something that I want to touch on as well, which is that you said people think that like they need to be high vibration all the time and can't experience anything bad and sunshine and rainbows all the time. And then what I hear just with my audience, people that I work with, is like, Brandon, I've tried so hard. I've done so much work in self-development, but like I'm going through a really hard time. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And I'll never forget this reading that DX had given us. And I'm just going to paraphrase it, but it said, never forget that you asked for this. And that's what people don't understand, is they think like, I'm going to go on this journey of manifesting and it's just going to come in and everything's going to be great. Mm-hmm. And it's like, cool. If you're trying to manifest $1 million business and you are not the person who can have the $1 million business yet, the universe is going to go, great. You want that $1 million business? Let's effing go. Let's go. Let's do it. And they're going to be like, so here, I'm going to throw this in your way so you grow. I'm going to throw this in your way so you learn. I'm going to throw this in your way so you, and then everyone's going like, what is going on? I thought it was manifest. And it's like, you got to fucking earn it, man. You can't, it's not just going to, universe, here you go. Like you didn't do any work for this. You got to become that person. You got to operate at that frequency, that vibration, but it takes effing work to get there. It's just not going to be handed to you. And so sometimes when you're sitting there going like, nothing's on my plate, I can't manifest. Oh, you're manifesting. You just don't like the process to get to the end goal. Yeah. And then they go like, what am I doing wrong? And like, you're doing everything right, except you're fucking complaining about it. So pull your pants up and keep going. That's like, just take it on, you know? Does that make sense? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. So, I love when DX says like, there's souls knocking down the doors of Earth trying to incarnate here. And it's like the universe or God or whoever goes, are you sure? Like, it's a painful process. Like there's a lot of pain on Earth. Yeah. And we're like, yes, sign us up. Like that's what he was saying in the recording I was listening to yesterday. And I was just laughing at how We really did ask for this. And so just coming to Earth is an incredible playground. And that's what makes manifestation so amazing, is because that's the point of being here on Earth. In the spiritual realm, you don't have to manifest anything because it's intangible, it's non-material, non-physical. And so there's nothing really to play with up there except for pure thought, pure consciousness, pure feeling, or whatever. I don't really remember what it's like before we incarnated. I'm still in the process of remembering, right?
Yeah.
But here it's a physical, tangible, material world. It's meant to be played with. We're meant to create. We're meant to manifest. We're meant to use our mind, the universal mind. You know, there's a book. What's the book called? You know this book, not the Kabbalah. Kabbalion.
Yeah.
Yeah, how it says in that book, like the universe is a mental universe, and it's like we're using the mental realms to create in the physical realm, and that's amazing, right?
Right.
That's awesome. And at the same time, also, since we are, and think about everything, this is how I think about it, everything the opposite of being in non-physical form. So non-physical form, there's no need to play with the material world. So that's when we come here, like that's the point. Manifestation is the point, right?
Right.
Also, in that realm, there's no lessons to learn. There's no hardships. There's no challenges, but we want to grow as souls. And so we come here on this playground so that we can learn and grow and evolve.
Yeah.
And that comes from challenges. We are immortal souls coming into a mortal life so that we can learn what it's like to be mortal. Like that's the point of it. And so,
Right.
yeah, we're going to experience challenges and things like that. And that's what makes it fun. Because if nothing ever happened and everything was so monotone and consistent and we felt good all the time, like we'd be bored out of our minds. There'd be no point of coming here.
It's a robbery of the high emotions you can feel too. Like
Exactly.
there's no better feeling than like working your butt off, going through all these challenges, and then coming out the other side. And if you're dedicated and you stick to it, you will always come out the other side. You always do. Nothing will last forever.
Yeah.
And then if everything's just plain, simple, good the entire time, you start to lose appreciation
It's just
for it.
the only thing that is a straight line is if you're dead, right?
Yeah.
So life, like your heartbeat is all over the place. Like when they look at your vitals on the hospital machines, it's like if it's a flat line, that's not good. Like
Right.
life should be up and down, up and down, up and down. That's where these laws come in. So a lot of people are more familiar with the law of attraction
Right.
than any of the other laws of the universe. And inside of my program, Manifestation Babe Academy, I talk about 18 different laws. And two of them that are coming up right now is one, the law of polarity. So what you just shared, like polarity exists so that we can experience the fullness of life. And it, there's dark, so there's light, and there's light, so there's dark, and there's sadness, so that there is extreme happiness, and so on and so forth. It's so we get the fullness of life.
Right.
And my point, circling back into your first point that you made with like people don't realize that it's not just like things poof out of thin air. Well, that's because there's a law called the law of action. And the law of action is designed as part of this matrix of coming into the physical 3D realm, because when we're, quote unquote, manifesting how most people see it in the mainstream, we're sitting, we're visualizing, we're praying, we're doing these things, we're taking action in that moment on the mental realm, we're taking action in the spiritual realm, we're taking action on the emotional realm. Like we're feeling as if we're already there, right?
Yeah.
And the missing piece, like what is actually going to take it from the energetic realms and bring it into the physical action. So that's where you need to answer the door if someone's knocking. That's where you need to open up your computer if you want to start an online business. You need to walk into a job interview if you're manifesting a particular job. Like you got to apply for the job. It's not just like you're sitting there and just you get this notification on your phone and like, you're now the CEO of this company. Congratulations by you just waking up in the morning. Of course, there's these steps that need to be taken, but it's all part of the journey. And I think that's what makes it so great. Like you said, if it just all came so easily to you and just so out of thin air, you wouldn't appreciate it. You wouldn't have gratitude for it. It would bore you out of your mind, and then you would live a life that truly is unfulfilling. And I tell my students all the time, like, success is amazing, but it's a very poor teacher. And if you're like those moments where I have like a really big launch and I'm going to the beach and I'm having a mocktail on the beach and I'm just like sitting on the beach with Brennan for like a week or two at a time, like, yeah, that feels so good, but eventually gets old, right? And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
learning anything from that state.
Right.
I'm learning everything from the launches that go wrong, from
Yeah.
the employee that we had to let go of. I'm learning from the fight that I had with my husband. I'm learning from the death that happened to, XYZ member of my family. Like, that's where all the life lessons, that's where the juice of life comes from. And that's what makes life worth living. And I think
Yeah.
that the moment we reframe our relationship with everything that happens to not just be good or bad, but actually neutral, and then we get to label whatever, like we get to create the meaning, like we get to attach meaning, whatever meaning it is that serves us to whatever happens in life. Like that's when you hack the whole system. And that's when you find that life is going to go more and more and more and more your way, because you're
Right.
not giving your power away to things that actually are very meaningless. We think that they're so meaningful. They actually don't really have meaning. It's us who give meaning. And if you can restructure and recreate the meaning that you want to attach to it, you've hacked the game, baby.
Yeah. Okay. I took like 5 different directions I want to go now because you just dropped so
Yay.
much stuff. We could talk about what meaning means and all that stuff. So
What
I just
meaning
want to,
means.
I'm just going to tack on to kind of what you just laid down the last part, which is like that you said success was a crappy teacher, and it really is. But there's a couple things that I've learned from success, and that is the power of gratitude. And that is like my success has been such a great teacher in gratitude to the point where I'm actually grateful now for things going wrong. And it also
Yeah.
gives me an appreciation for all of the lessons and all the things where it's like a year ago. I remember, I think we were both texting, like our launch didn't do very well in yours. Like, yeah, ours was did like, I don't know, 40% of what you normally
It
do
was
or
like
60.
everyone's launch sucked. Everyone we knew, their launch sucked.
Yeah, it was just awful. And at the time I was like, the hell is going on? But it was the biggest blessing in the world because it got us to this point where now we're going to do one launch a year instead of two, and we have an open enrollment process the entire rest of the year, and it's just great because it's just like there's not the feast and famine of launching anymore. It's always just
Yes.
like
Yeah.
money always coming in. And so that's what the success has taught me is those sorts of things. But it also allowed me to become like the hard times allowed me to become a better parent, because now when your immediate I think reaction when your kids are going through a hard time is to want to stop the hard time for them, alleviate it, like let me help.
Yeah.
And because I've gotten so much value of nothing being handed to me, of hitting my head against the wall 1.5 million times, of all the struggle, I saw what I was a what it who it formed me to be, and I'm like, I never want to rob my kids of that. Like, I'm never gonna let them go into danger where they're gonna like break an arm or like get seriously hurt or obviously killed or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, but when they're like struggling with something, my immediate reaction now is not to jump in and it's like, go figure that out. Will you want to go
Yeah.
climb that tree? Go ahead. Like, go ahead. You might fall and get hurt. Maybe you will break your arm. I don't know. But I think it was Dr. Jordan Peterson said it best. Is he said something along the lines of like, you have to let your kids do dangerous things safely.
Yeah. I was gonna
And
quote him too.
yeah, and I love that quote. And so had I not gone through these hard times and just brought it all on myself, like handed it down and all and everything, like just generational wealth just handed to me with doing absolutely nothing, I don't think my life would be as full as it is right now. Actually,
Agreed.
I don't even think I know it wouldn't be. And
Agreed.
and so like even like how what we're going to do with our money and how we're going to leave it to our kids and what like Jacqueline and I are just like, I don't really know what to do. Like, I don't want to just here you 18, here you go. It's kind of like I think what I want to say, I know I'm getting off on a tangent. I think what we might do is match like every 10 years. Like at 20, I'll match whatever you have. So at 30, I'll match whatever you have. At
That's
40, I'll
smart.
match whatever you have. Like maybe something like that. So you have to work, but you also get to enjoy the fruit of all the crap that we had to go through.
Yeah. That's such a good conversation because I grew up in poverty and I will never want to trade it for the world. Like I don't I was bullied. I grew up in poverty. Like I did not have an easy childhood, and thank God. Like, I am so grateful for my childhood. I laugh all the time because you have all these memes and jokes on the internet of like adulting is hard, or like I wish I could be a kid again. I'm like, literally no. Like, I love adulting because I'm in charge of my own reality now, and
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want. I can buy what I want. I can do what I want. The world is my oyster. I don't know what
Right.
you guys are smoking, but it's
Right.
because my childhood was not a good childhood. And thank God it wasn't, because I would not be who I am today. I would not be as hungry as I am today, as driven,
Right.
as ambitious. And,
Or
I think,
humble too.
or humble, exactly. And same conversations that Brennan and I have of like, what do we do with our kids and the money? And
Yeah.
like, it's
It's
literally the same conversations.
it's a tough one to navigate. I think I'm like now I'm thinking like I need to hit up Mel Abraham because he's done a great job raising his son who's an entrepreneur, has built his own wealth, but Mel also is super wealthy. So he's wealthy, raising kids who became self-made
Yeah.
people themselves, which
Oh,
is
I
which
love
is really
Mel
good.
so much. He's such a, like, anyone who doesn't know Mel, like, you need to know who Mel is. He is
Yeah.
such a role model in so
Yeah.
many aspects. He's such an amazing human.
Full of heart, just full of
Yeah.
heart. I love him so much. Okay, so there's going back to that last conversation. You talked about how a lot of people are giving their power away, and one of the things I know I mentioned to this to you before the podcast episode that I wanted to sort of end the episode on. We'll see where this takes us. It could be another 4 hours. I don't know, but
Could be. We
we'll
never
see
know.
this topic. But you talked about giving your power away, and I think that's what happens is a lot of people go through these hard times and then they give their power away to those events or to the external world, and it disrupts the manifesting. It disrupts them being authentically who they are. It messes up their dharma and all of those things. And the thing that I mentioned to you before is respect about you. I think the most is the boldness that you have inside of your brand. And I know you didn't start off that way. And I see it with my students all the time. They're afraid of so much stuff. It's like, should I put this word on my thank you page? And it's like, who the F cares? Just put it on the thank you page. It literally doesn't matter. And they're like, well, what about this and that? I'm like, who gives a crap? Like, what if my unsubscribe rate goes down? And I'm like, who cares? Like, people are going to unsubscribe from you. That's a part of this journey. Like, who
Yeah.
the hell cares? Just effing do it. And I know you don't live that way anymore. I don't live that way anymore. I'm just like, I'm going to do
Yeah.
what I want when I want. And then if it becomes a problem, I'll address it then, but I'm not going to stress or worry or let the external world take my power away at all. Zero. Like, obviously it's impossible to do zero, but I'll be aware of it. I'll transform and move it to a more powerful spot. You do a great job with that within your brand. I would love to hear how you're able to do that, bring in so much of the boldness. Was it just literally just going on a self-development journey and going through your limiting beliefs? But
Yeah.
what did it look like for you?
Oh my God. So much undoing, so much shifting. Like, anyone who knows me knows I'm like a master scientist, experimenter of the mind. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trained in more modalities than I can possibly count. I like
There's a
forget, I
lot.
honest to God forget. Like, someone mentions a modality and I go, "Oh yeah, I got certified in that back in 2018. I forgot about that one," right? And it's cuz I'm obsessed. I mean, it's like dharma, you want to call
Yeah.
it, past life connection. It's so deep within me. But I lately have been into two modalities that have helped me a lot because they address unconscious beliefs. And I think that a lot of modalities, especially the classic one, talk therapy.
Yeah.
Talking is a conscious activity, right? You and I are having a conversation. This is us using our conscious mind right now.
Yep.
But that only rules 5% of our life. And consciously, we can only focus on 1 to 3 things at a time. So right now I'm focusing on speaking with you. And at the same time, I'm like, wow, it's kind of hot in this room. And I'm drinking my coffee or whatever this is. I think
Right.
it's like a fake coffee, like a coffee replacement that I made myself. And so
Wait,
like
hold on.
conscious,
Pause.
what?
You brought up coffee. I'm a coffee snob, love coffee. What are you drinking? I need to know.
Mud water. Have you heard of
Oh,
it?
is that the mushroom coffee thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You like
yeah.
it?
Yes, actually. And the reason why is because I drank a lot of Four Sigmatic after messing around with some psychedelics, my soul told me that I should focus on adaptogenic mushrooms. And so I've
Okay.
been like very much into like chaga, cordyceps, like lion's mate, uh, the other one. There's like
Okay.
four main ones. And this one is like a coffee replacement with some like spices and things. And it just has like a really nice flavor to it. And
I
I
tried
drink
it.
it.
I like it.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
good.
it. But then I just missed like regular coffee too much. So I went back, but I was like, if DX said you can't do coffee anymore because it's ruining your health or something, I'm like, this would be a nice replacement. I
Wait,
like
he
it.
said that or didn't say that?
He didn't say that, but I'm thinking if he had said that,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a time where he kept talking about green tea to me and just me, and I'm like thinking in my head, is this him telling me to stop drinking coffee, or is it just to drink more green tea, or do both? And then you get in those like cycles of questioning everything, and then you have to make a decision of like, okay, I'm just going to do this, and that's the end of it. And it's because he likes to F with your head, which brings us back to the whole breastfeeding thing and the kid thing with me and
Oh
you. And
my
he's just like, will
God.
say these things and you get in and then that's a form of losing your power because now you're questioning what he said and this, and am I doing the right thing? And then you have to step into your power to make a decision, go, this is what I'm
Exactly.
doing and I'm good
Yes.
with it. And then boom. And it's such a great lesson
You
in
guys,
personal
if
power.
I think he does, I mean, he acts like the universe's partner in crime.
Yeah.
So like when we really desire something, the universe will come in and be like, "Okay, I see that you desire that and I will help you get to that place and I'll help you become the version of yourself who can handle being in that place." And so here's a challenge, here's an obstacle, here's something you need to overcome, blah blah blah. And I feel like DX is like the universe's partner in crime
Yeah.
where he'll like do the same of that, but in the 3D sense and or just like conversations you have with him because if I actually listen, if I didn't go on that journey of finding where my power is with kids, because you remember that
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
mind fuckery that I had around children because DX was going on this tangent of like, it's not a good idea and they're going to suck you dry and all this stuff. Like he was saying a lot of things that it's not like they weren't true, but it was like not something that you say to someone who has extreme baby fever at
Yeah.
like a dinner, you know?
Well, especially because most people that work with him don't have kids either.
Yeah, and so, oh my God, the amount of questioning that I had, I'm like, well, Brandon has kids, and Brandon, how are you doing this? And you said something so powerful to me where you were like, Kathrin, if DX can say all of that and you still have this desire to have kids, I think that's your sign right there is you're meant to have children. And I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I think so too. And then it really made me like tune in of like, yes, I 100% want kids. And of course, long story short, it turned out that DX knew Orion. He says years and years and years and years before I even knew who he was. And it like it's like a he knew what was going to happen, but it was
Yeah.
like he implanted this so that we can reconnect with our intuition even stronger.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for those journeys that we go on mentally, is because I find my intuition to be strengthened every time I come back
Yeah.
into my own power. And I'm like, no, this is what I want. No, this is not serving me anymore. Yes, this is serving me. But what was the original question? You
Well,
asked something
I'll,
about.
I'll get back to it in a second. I wrote a
Okay.
note as we can go back to it because I'm
Okay.
about to take us even deeper on this tangent
Okay.
journey now.
Okay. Let's go.
Because I want to talk about it, and it's still related to power because what we're talking about is like your personal power, which is how we got onto this conversation.
Yeah.
But there was so I'm just trying to figure out how to. I know you know this whole story, so just bear with me while I tell the audience. But it was basically like I was one of the first people to come onto the path with working with DX in a lot of years, and I had kids. I started the path with kids, and so I wasn't on the path then had kids. Had kids, and then I was on the path with working with DX. And I remember like going to one of the first gatherings with like the inner circle, the people that did all the ceremonies at the pyramids in Giza, the Machu Picchu, which by the way, they did ceremonies inside the pyramids in different places in Machu Picchu, all these energy points around the world, reconnecting these chakra points, energy points back to the grid of the planet, like DX and people like Jim and that whole group did that. So I go into the circle and none of them have kids. Not a single person have kids. Then James comes into the path, no kids. And then I'm sitting there going like, wow, I'm the only one with kids. And then all of them have their spouses working with DX as well. Jacqueline, my wife, does not work with DX. And I'm sitting there going like, I just had this thought of like, if I go down this path, I'm going to have to like say goodbye to my family. That's just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was tormented by that for 2 or 3 years. And I was just like, man, and it actually held me back. And that was a form of me losing my personal power. It was like, anytime you're in this emotional distress, it's eating up your energy, your brain power. You're giving your power
And it's
away.
like your own meaning you're attaching it. It's like no
Yeah.
one said it straight out to
No.
you, but you're just coming up with your own conclusions.
Exactly. And then so I remember like DX, every time we were together, he would tell the story of like, you know, he would tell the journey of working with Don Juan, and he was like 13 years old, and he would meet these other shamans in Mexico, and he would tell all these stories of working with Don Juan. And so then he would say, then I had about a 20-year period where Don Juan passed away and said, the next 20 years, you're going to have to go live like a normal human life so you understand what it's like to be a normal human. So he talks about going to New York and starting these businesses out there and all of this stuff. And then he actually had kids and he had a family. And then he said, then the beings came back and said, okay, it's time to start this path. And he had to leave his family. And so, you know, not like leave, like he still has a great relationship with his kids and all that stuff. But like the level of where he's operating, you can't be in the day to day of like what you were doing. So
Yeah.
he ended up having to leave, and he would tell this story of how like he had to choose the path because it was time and that he had to leave his family. And then I remember at one dinner in particular, about a year and a half ago, maybe 2, he walked straight up to me and he goes, you know, when my kids turned 13, I had to make a decision to choose the path, and I had to go. I had to leave. And I was already like in my mental tornado.
He could sense that. Yeah.
He sensed it. And he fucking added gasoline to the fire. And then when we moved to Arizona, I was still kind of going through this, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to be closer to DX. Like, is things going to intensify? Does this mean I'm going to have to leave my family and all of this stuff? And still, Kathryn, this has been going on for years. And then I made a decision, and I said, you know what? It's been 4 years of me going through this torment. Enough is enough. I'm done. I'm so done. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm making a choice. Like, I think my path, there's a reason why I had kids before I entered the path. There's a reason why I'm the first one to have like kids and family. This is a part of my dharma. This is a part of my purpose. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then lo and behold, like all of a sudden you had kids. And then like Padma.
There's so many
started
people
working
have
with
kids
him
now.
and then so many people had kids. And it all started happening as soon as I made that decision of like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. And then as soon as I made that decision, literally like 3 or 4 months later, we're in the middle of the forest and we're cutting down a Christmas tree. Got a permit to go cut a Christmas tree down. And I heard this howling. My kids, everyone stopped in their tracks. My kids were like, what was that? And I'm like, oh, it's just coyotes. But I knew, I'm like, it was not coyotes. And then Will, my son's like, Dad, I saw a white wolf. I saw a white wolf. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no wolves in Arizona. He's like, Dad, I saw a white wolf. And then in my mind, I'm like, these are wolves. And they were all around us. You could hear them just howling all around us. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, let's get out of here. And we look it up. And sure enough, there's 18 packs of American gray wolves here in northern Arizona, just living out in the forest, eating elk and doing their thing. So then I text DX and I was like, Don, I have to ask, was that you? And like, were you there? And he said, yeah, I showed up as the white wolf, which is what Will saw. I showed up as the white wolf, so there's nothing to worry about. And then my interpretation of that was the wolves were closing in on us and he showed up to protect us. And then I asked him recently and I said, did you show up to protect us from the wolves because they were closing in on us, or did you call the wolves in? And he goes, no, I called the wolves in to give you and your family something. And then I realized I knew exactly what it was in that moment. It was family, together, loyalty. It's what the pack of the wolves are. And it was like, I almost want to cry now because it was like this beautiful journey of like, I am almost crying now. I'm like getting super teary eyed.
Me too.
It was like this beautiful journey of like 4 years of torment just ending. And it was like DX helped end that 4-year torment of like bringing in the wolves to show like pack and loyalty and being together. And it was
It's
just
like a
oh my God.
confirmation of you reclaiming your power. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it would have happened if you were still in torment zone.
Yeah.
And I see that like that's, I mean, I'm teary-eyed now. Um, I remember that, like I went through a similar torment in so many different aspects, but the kids one was a big one because my spiritual journey is so important to me.
Right.
And it's like I as soon as I heard about DX, I was like, I know him. I don't know how. This is weird. I'm kind of a stalker right now, but I know him, and obviously I did. And it's a very important journey to me because there's been so many learnings and teachings and growings from this journey. And I was like, am I not supposed to, like, is having kids going to take me away from that? Am I supposed to focus? Am I supposed to live more of a monk lifestyle, I guess? Is like, you don't have kids, you just,
Right.
keep to yourself. You spend a lot of time in meditation, this and that. And it's interesting because the more that I went down a similar journey and the more that I chose what I really wanted to choose, like especially with travel, some of my torment was with travel because nobody in the group travels very much.
Right.
And here I am globetrotting every other week.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, am I supposed to give up travel? It's like, again, attaching all these meanings. Like
Yeah.
we're looking, and I've often shared this with you and Brennan, especially, I'm like, the moment we look at each other, we all suffer. The moment
Right.
we reconnect to, like, anyone who's listening who maybe isn't working with DX or not planning to work with DX, the moment you reconnect between you and source, like it's between you and source, it's between you and God, you and infinite creator, however you want to define it. The moment we start looking at everyone else, like relating this to like business or relationships, whatever, is the moment you start turning your head side to side, you get miserable because you're comparing different chapters of different dharmas, different karmas, different chapters. It just sends you down this path of spiraling out of control. And I remember, like, the more that I chose genuinely what my dharma was, what I could feel inside my soul, this is my dharma, the more then DX would confirm it. So when I showed up pregnant, he was like, oh, you didn't know you were pregnant last time, because I saw him when I was literally, you guys, like 3 days pregnant. Like I
Oh
ovulated
my
3 days
gosh.
prior. I came over thinking, oh, he's going to say something, but he never did. And I thought to myself, oh, I must not be pregnant, because I'm like, I know this guy can see, like, I know that he knows. And he never said anything. And then, I had a positive pregnancy test a week later. I was terrified out of my mind to send it to Mandy, but I finally did. I was like, hey, surprise, looks like I'm pregnant. She's like, oh my God, we're overjoyed. I sent the gender reveal video. They're like, oh my God. And I'm like, what is going on? And the next
Yeah.
time I see him, he literally walks in through the door. You weren't there. He walks in through the door, and you know how everyone kind of lines up to hug him. Whoever's
Right.
closer to the door, like, goes first or whatever. I was way in the back. I was in the kitchen. And he goes, everyone out of my way. Where's my mama?
Oh
And
my God.
just literally pushes everyone aside, comes to hug me. He's like, my mama, you didn't know you were pregnant last time. I did. I was so excited. I wanted to celebrate. I wanted to say something, but I can't because I have to respect free will. I'm like, what is happening right now? And then moving further, like all of a sudden I find out that actually there's people, someone in the inner circle who had twins. I never knew that because they're
Really?
older. And so, yes. And then someone else, and then I'm sitting next to someone else with kids, and I'm like, what is happening right now? And
Right.
then with the travel thing, I was tormenting the moment I was like, I don't care anymore. I'm going to keep
Yeah.
traveling because I genuinely feel like this is part of my dharma.
Right.
Like I'm gaining power from these parts of the world. Like I'm really just reconnecting. It's like I'm reconnecting with past lives as I travel. I feel it. Like I've
Yeah.
been to all these places before. Finally, as soon as I got over that, I remember a specific conversation that he was having with another member. This is when he starts shape shifting, and I see his face split in half, and he's talking to someone with half his face, talking to me with the other side of the face. And it's like the same message, but when I look at one side of his face, it's coming directly to me, and the other half is going to the other person. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is happening right now? And he was saying, I want you guys to have a jet. I want you to travel. I want you to buy multiple houses. I want you to have this and this and this and this and this. And he was just basically saying how, like, don't let that come over your spiritual journey. Don't
Right.
let that, don't give your power away to those things. But part of the material, physical, tangible, like coming back to that point that I made, part of the material world is for you to play with it, is for you to have fun, have adventures, have these nice things. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing spiritual about it. It's very spiritual, in fact, because it's a manifestation of your own creation. Like there's nothing more spiritual than that. And all of a sudden, like every time I see him, every conversation I hear, like listening to the recording from yesterday, where that recording wasn't directed at me at all,
Right.
but me listening to it now, it is. He's again saying, "Travel the world. I want you to go here, here, here." And I'm like, this is
Yeah.
really interesting. The moment I stop tormenting myself, all of a sudden, it's like everything is in alignment, and it's because of those, not like tests, but just like a training in listening to your own intuition.
Yeah. And which goes back to, we'll weave it back into where we were before this long ass segue is the personal power thing, because all those things, those doubts, I'm coming to the conclusion that it's like this emotional torment that we put ourselves in, and it could be fear of judgment, fear of whatever.
Yeah.
Am I doing the right thing?
Oh, the boldness
those are all
thing.
losses
Yeah.
of personal power. And that's what working with the Dawn has done is brought huge amounts of personal power, but you don't need a shaman in order to do that.
No.
You know? And so to weave it back in of being bold in your brand, not worrying about stupid things like your unsubscribe rate. Like there's so many things inside of your business, like great data points to take a very 3D, logical sort of look on stuff, which would be helpful. But when we start getting into fear, worry, all of that stuff, we have this huge loss of personal power. And I've seen it firsthand. Like I think when you and I met, you already had a decent sized brand, but even from then to today, it's a whole nother level. And I can just see it in you. It's like the more personal power that you gain, the more sort of influence, followers, and revenue you've started to make as well. And so, obviously working with DX and things like that have helped, but what would you say, like if someone wants to become way more bold, way more bold in a brand, like, and they don't have like a shaman to like move them through these difficult times or make their times even harder, what can they start doing?
I love this. So let me just quickly share of like what I think helped me the most is number one, this is something you can easily implement, is in every decision that you make, in every challenge, and every like whatever you're going through, go take yourself to the future, 90 years old, sitting in a rocking chair, looking back at your life. And like, in the end, did it really fucking matter that someone canceled me on the internet? Did it really matter that I had 2 unsubscribes? I mean, does it really, like, are you actually going to remember these things? You don't even have to go that far. It's like, even a year from now, are you going to remember that? No. But one thing that really helped me that I've been focused on over the last few years, going back to all those different modalities, the modalities that focus on your unconscious mind, like multi-level communication, telling your unconscious, because you have to access the unconscious to be able to communicate with it. And once you access the unconscious, which is different modalities for that, one is hypnosis. Hypnosis is a great modality that has helped me a lot. Going above hypnosis, I've been talking a lot about rapid resolution therapy. It's just a way to get to your unconscious. It's using metaphors, it's using specificity, it's using hypnotic language.
All the things we talk about in messaging.
Exactly. It's using all those things to communicate to your unconscious that you are safe, because your unconscious wants to protect you, and it's constantly on the lookout for survival. And so if your unconscious has a connection that someone canceling you or someone unsubscribing, whatever, is a threat to your survival, which in a way, yes, there's a connection there, because a threat to your finances could be a threat to your comfort, security, certainty, and therefore your survival. And as long as your unconscious sees things as threats, it's constantly going to be trying to protect you. And that protection is going to come is going to manifest as fear. It's going to manifest as anxiety. It's going to manifest as people pleasing. It's going to manifest in so many of these different ways that are preventing you from really standing in your power and doing things because you want to be doing them, not because you're trying to avoid something or you're trying to please someone or you're, trying to be seen a certain way or trying to be significant, because it's all rooted in that survival. And so I really got into these modalities, and I'm constantly hiring someone to do them on me. There's actually one that you can do on yourself, but you just have to go through a training to learn it. It's a recent discovery of mine. It's called Psych K. Have you heard of it?
No.
So it's really powerful because you truly can rewire your own unconscious limiting beliefs on your own. Like you don't need to have anyone else do it to you. And it's basically like the basics of it is you are aligning your two hemispheres of your brain together. You're like aligning your unconscious, conscious, and super conscious mind, which super conscious is like, it could be seen as your soul.
Yep.
You're aligning all those together. You're like sitting in a certain position that you're muscle testing for. And then you're letting the shift happen. And then when you muscle test for it again, all of a sudden your responses are different. And you just feel like it's cleared. So it's very powerful. If you want to, there's like, I have no affiliation with it. I literally just learned it, but they have like different workshops that you could do. It's only 3 days. You get like a little certification, then you can actually do it yourself. Rapid resolution therapy is one I highly, highly, highly recommend. It's changed my life. It's I've had deep traumas cleared in a single session. I've had like me being molested as a child cleared in a single session that I didn't know was impacting so much of my life.
Really?
There's one session that I had, like my second or third session was on all of these memories that I've brought to every single modality, like these memories of my mom going through my backpack, seeing a B, like something with a B, C, D, whatever grade that wasn't an A on it, and like calling me a failure, saying I'm never going to amount to anything. And then there was some other memory. It's like all these memories, like kids laughing at me when I'm presenting in front of the class that I attached all these meanings to that were a threat to my survival. And so then I operated so much of my life unconsciously through these filters of fear. And in a single session, all clear, I have not been the same person since. It's magical, it's powerful, and it's not something you need to like upkeep because it's unconscious. It's just clear, and the way that you operate in the world coming out of clearing an unconscious belief is unlike anything in this world.
Right. I think that like what you said is the maintenance piece is really important. Mm-hmm. Here's been my experience with coming up with like limiting beliefs and stuff is that you have an experience, you consciously don't remember it, but in the moment you attach a meaning or a belief that stays imprinted in your head.
Yep.
It's running on autopilot. You don't know that it's there.
Yep.
What it sounds like is happening is you bring yourself to a point where you now become aware of what it is and why it's there. And then the awareness allows you to sort of rewrite it. Is that a simple way of kind of explaining the process of what's going on?
Yes. I think awareness of it is a whole big part of the clearing. And I think that taking it to the unconscious level clears it completely to where you don't have to keep, because I find myself in the past when I would have an unconscious belief of like, I'm not enough or whatever, or I suck at public speaking or whatever, like based on those memories that I shared with you.
Yeah.
It's like the awareness is powerful because now I'm aware that it's not just there for no reason. It's coming from somewhere. And then I can make a conscious choice of I'm not going to let 5-year-old Kathrin's memories impact 30-year-old Kathrin. Like in spite of that, I'm going to take action and face this fear. Like that's one way of doing things. And then another way of doing it is by literally rewiring your unconscious, by like actually removing the energetic stuckness. So what essentially happens is there's data that didn't get fully processed in the unconscious. Okay. So when things get fully processed, you are completely neutral to it, right? Okay. So you can have an understanding of something, but you don't feel neutral. You still kind of feel the pain of that memory. You can still kind of feel the pain. Like I still felt the pain of those kids laughing at me. Even if I didn't let, like for so long, I didn't let it actually impact me because look at me, I'm building this business. I'm putting myself out there. I'm speaking on stage. I'm speaking on a podcast. Like technically I'm not letting it impact me because of that awareness. But when you completely clear it, it's like it's neutral. Like you don't even. I can't explain it. It's unexplainable because it's unconscious. Right. Yeah. Like that's the thing is like I have no words for it because it's unconscious. Yeah. And there's only 2 modalities really that have actually, in my opinion, are the most powerful for transforming these things.
You know what I'm waiting for, Kathrin? Because I'm waiting for you to come up with your own modality.
I know you are.
That
I
now
will.
becomes the standard in the space.
I think
I almost, when you said psych
Psych
K,
K. Yeah.
I almost said, does the K stand for Kathrin? Is this her announcing her new modality she created?
It's it's funny because I know a lot of these modalities are actually like some come from, scientific exploration and
Right.
pattern recognition, but some of them people have literally downloaded. Like human design, which is based off of astrology and different like spiritual modalities,
Right.
was literally a person downloading it now on LSD probably. Like I'm pretty sure he was on psychedelics. I think that's the
Right.
actual story, but it was downloaded and channeled through him. And then there's like rapid resolution therapy. Like he has done a lot of pattern recognition over like 30, 40. He's like 75 years old, so a lot of
Yeah.
years. And I have this feeling that there definitely will be a mixture for me where it's like I have this massive download, and then also like combining my years and years and years and years of teaching people how to manifest. And it's like,
Yeah.
here's the thing with these modalities, you guys, is the process of manifestation doesn't change. It's just the process of getting things out of the way that aren't supposed to be there, that there's different techniques of how to overcome it. And whatever technique works for you, go for that. But the process of manifestation is the same no matter what. It's define what you want, become the version of you who has it, and then take action. And I think it's in the becoming the version of you who has it where a lot of those beliefs come up. Like in my course, that's where we do a lot of this rewiring process, is because you want to be this person, but you're so afraid, or you're so impacted by the past, or you're feeling anxiety every single day. So like, let's clear that, because the version of you who already has your desires doesn't feel that way. Otherwise they wouldn't. They aren't acting in that way. They aren't letting those things hold themselves back. So let's clear that. And then that will allow us to manifest things faster. So it's all just about speed. I mean,
Yeah.
I've learned this over, like, I haven't been introduced to many of these modalities and techniques until like, I've known about manifestation since I was 16 years old, and I've, manifested plenty by the point that I even made these discoveries. It's just like efficiency, making things easier, making things faster, and things like that. And one day I'll have my own modality that I'll
Yeah.
train people in.
Well, I'm waiting for that day. I can't wait for that day. But yeah, I think, it's kind of like if we are all, everyone on this planet is here, and like, let's just call it California, and we all want to get to New York, and that's the goal. And New York is manifestation complete. We all have options on how to get there. The different modalities: plane, walk,
Train,
bike, car,
yeah.
different types of cars, different types of planes, all of that
So
stuff.
true.
Well, Kathryn, this has been amazing. An hour and 20 minutes flew by. We talked about a lot. This was an amazing episode. And what I love is it just feels like a great, normal conversation. It doesn't actually feel like I'm interviewing anyone. So I thank you for your time. If people want to learn more about you, your program, follow you, where should they go?
Yes, you can follow me on the Instagrams at Manifestation Babe. You can follow my podcast, Manifestation Babe Podcast, and you can check out my website for all my offerings at manifestationbabe.com.
Awesome. Kathryn, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, if you guys have not left us a review on iTunes, head over and do that now, and we will be back next week for a brand new episode. See you then. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.